Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the REal Talk 2025. I'm Trang, Country Head of JLL Vietnam. And today, we're diving into the Vietnam industrial and logistics sectors, the sector that's continuously gained traction on the market. And to unpack the trend and what does it mean to the developers, investors, and the occupiers, I'm delighted to have Will Trang, the Head of Leasing from JLL Vietnam, here with me today. So, Will, can you make the introduction about yourself to our audience?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Trang. So I'm Will Tran, and I am Head of Leasing in Vietnam. And I'm looking after our office leasing advisory business and, of course, industrial and logistics business as well.
Okay, well, thank you. So Vietnam industrial and logistic markets has a very resilient growth and momentum amid the global uncertainty. Let's start with a question about the current market dynamic situation. So could you please share with us the current supply and the demand market dynamic and the trend on the market as well?
The market is looking very strong at the moment. We've seen a lot of activities in the first half of this year. The transactions have been quite spread across the north and the south. Of course, in the north, the majority is Chinese firms coming into the market, and then we've seen a lot of more sort of European countries coming into the south. Of course, the key ones are Korean, Singaporean firms, Taiwanese firms, and there's a good handful of European firms, German firms. All coming in to sell up their factories and plants here, a part of their China plus one, China plus N strategy. In terms of the transaction sizes, we've seen warehouses from 10,000 going all the way up to over 150,000 square meters of facilities, of spaces being taken up. The larger size, surprisingly, is e-commerce, warehouse, logistics. So that sort of coincides with Vietnam's e-commerce current boom at the moment. So yeah, the recent transactions that we've seen are Shein, Shopee, Express, and together with that, we also seen a high demand as well from the logistics players as well now. So yeah, the market is really looking up. Also, the supporting factor of that is the government, Vietnam, also changing its policies, streamlining provinces and processes, making everything much more easier. So that's a very important point with Vietnam changing its policies and streamlining its processes, making everything easier for investors coming in, especially after the tariff has now sort of ironed itself out. So Vietnam is coming out in full confidence, making changes, putting laws into effect since 1st of July. There's more new laws coming as well, and one notable one is going to be the tax law. That's going to come into effect in October. And that really changes the whole landscape for Vietnam's industrial market, where previously government incentives for preferred industries have been pegged to industrial zones and parks. But this new law now is no longer focusing on the location, but more on what you're producing and how you're producing it. Yeah, which will be a huge game changer for the market.
Given all the current situation that you just shared, how the demand and the supply on the market is look like at the moment?
Very, very healthy.
Mm-hmm.
So demand we just spoke about, and for the supply in the north at the moment, occupancy rates are registered at 80%, and more impressive in the south, just under 90%, 89%. In the south, the occupancy rates are looking very healthy, and we need more parks in better locations. Really looking forward to the government sort of once streamlining all the processes with the provinces, and hopefully they can open much more interesting land banks. Let's just say for the demand, we also seen pharmaceutical players come in, and also tire players coming in. Looking to sort of de-risk themselves from having industrial warehouses in the US. So sort of there was sort of looking at different strategies to sort of reduce their costs by expanding their warehouses in Vietnam and then sort of contracting their footprint in other countries in the US, etc., where cost is much higher.
When you're talking about like the change in the policy and the tech to helping to attract more FDI coming to the market, I think the infrastructure development is also the key part of that to supporting in attracting the new FDI coming into the new area and unlock more land bank for the development in the future. And you earlier talking about the tech policy about focus on the location now on the sectors. Can you elaborate a little bit more on that and what is the implication for the market?
For technology adoption, I think it is in transition at the moment, not revolutionary, but we do see a lot of the multinational firms are the ones that are adopting tech. They have publicly shown all of their tech initiatives that they're adopting. So yeah, we're seeing it will help as well as the facilities, the warehouses and factories are becoming more and more modern. So then it's easier for organizations to sort of integrate the technology rather than go full blown and automate everything. So it's sort of a little bit sort of egg before the chicken at the moment, really. So a lot of the facilities are traditional. More modern warehouses are going to come in. But yeah, in terms of the tech, we're seeing a lot of the multinational firms now sort of applying technology to sectors of their production lines and manufacturing processes. And they're slowly integrating it. Largely, all of it, I would say 80% are multinational companies. Names are no strangers to everyone, sort of Samsung, the Intels, the Foxcons. So yeah, we're going to see that number continually grow as the facility in the warehouse becomes more modern to sort of enable this technology and for everyone to enhance their operations.
Okay. And when we're talking about attracting manufacturing FDI into the country, the government policy and incentive play a very critical role in helping to attracting that. So you mentioned earlier about the potential change in the tax policy, switching from the location focus to the sector focus. What does it mean to the I&L sector on the market and for the occupier, developer, and investor?
Previously, you had to go to specific industrial parks and zones to get those incentives. And often certain locations wouldn't really make sense. So investors might look at other countries where it's sort of more relaxed and more adaptive for them. For instance, if you're manufacturing something and you need to export, you need to be closer to ports, etc. So certain locations, even though you can get the incentives, it means then increased logistics costs, the scarcity of skilled labor, a little bit awkward, let's just say, even though the incentives were attractive. But with this change that's going to come into effect in October, this will be a real big game changer to make Vietnam a much more competitive location compared to our Southeast Asian neighboring countries, where labor costs are comparatives. They are slightly sort of ahead in terms of their markets development. But we're catching up real fast now, again, with the tariffs all out of the way. Puts Vietnam in a very attractive position, but the government is going one step up in terms of all of our recent transformations and reforms, streamlining processes. But that one will be, I believe, it will be key in making it very easy for investors to come in and then choose a location that makes sense for them. In turn, then they can sort of reduce operational costs, etc., and then all the investment then comes to make better sense, basically.
Allied with the growth of the manufacturing sectors in Vietnam, we also see the very strong growth in the ready-built factory and warehouse sectors. So, well, from your point of view, could you please share the growth driver for the sectors and how the market outlook look like in the upcoming years?
Yes, absolutely. I do see the market growth to be very sustainable. I mean, the whole population now is, in terms of the population spending power, is growing immensely. So we spoke about the e-commerce players and logistics players as well, all growing their footprint at the moment to sort of cater to for the domestic population that's making all of these online orders, etc. Yeah, it's growing, it's booming. In terms of warehouses, logistics, we see the e-commerce players continually wanting more modern facilities, and then for them to sort of apply that technology to automate everything. I mean, for instance, what I've seen in China is that the automation, the adoption in terms of the final mile deliveries for their e-commerce for a much larger market. They've now sort of set the technology for deliveries to be sort of done to sort of delivered to parcel lockers, etc. So then people can go to the convenience stores, buy stuff, and then go and collect their items. Whereas we're here in our market, the final delivery mile is still non-cost friendly. Let's just say for parcels to be delivered to people's homes, and then the waiting period, etc. So there's definitely improvement on that part, and the technology will really will help it. And as the market grows, we see the Vietnam as well investing heavily in infrastructure that you spoke about already. I read somewhere they're putting in ambitious plans actually to complete to hit the 3,000 kilometer expressways network, targeting to have that done by 2030, if I recall. So very ambitious plans with the infrastructure enhancement, making costs much more controllable for the investors. Definitely, we see this market continues to go stronger and stronger. And of course, as Vietnam continually signs agreements, CSPs with different countries, what do we have now? We have 12 free trade agreements, free trading agreements with a network of 52 countries. So as Vietnam's continuing to go out and foster those relationships with more countries to sign more agreements, then Vietnam here, we're just going to have a very robust network for businesses, for supply chains to come in here to continue to grow. I can't see it any other way, really.
Okay, thanks, Will. So you already shared that Vietnam is experiencing a growing manufacturing sector. And along with that, we also see the very strong growth in the ready-built factory and ready-built warehouse sectors. So can you share the growth driver behind this sector and also the potential outlook for this sector in the future?
With the market demand trends so far, of course, the robustness of the traditional Vietnam's traditional manufacturing and logistics firms such as electronics, textiles, that's continuing to grow. We have seen continued strong foreign investment coming in from Singaporean, Korean, Japanese firms, mainly in electronics and high-tech manufacturing firms coming in, sectors coming in here as well, to sort of bolster Vietnam's demand trend. And one key one would be the e-commerce that we just spoke about. So as the population spending power continues to grow here, we spoke about, we've seen the e-commerce players taking the most notable sizes in terms of facilities footprints. And we'll see them wanting new, more modern warehouses as well. Yeah, we're going to see a lot more industrial parks now being unlocked by the government coming into play. So that opens up a whole new inventory for the e-commerce and logistics players as well. They, in terms of them wanting more modern warehouses, they will be applying more technology, adopting more technology as well. For instance, the final mile delivery fulfillment centers here at the moment, I believe that the costs are still pretty high from what we've seen. Let's just take China, for instance. They are a step ahead in terms of that final mile delivery. The cost is probably a lot more reduced, as we've seen. There's like parcel lockers that they set up, which makes everything, the delivery, much more streamlined, easier, effective, reducing costs. People can go to sort of the convenience stores, buy some items, and then go and pick up their orders from outside the lockers. I think Vietnam, we can really learn from that and apply that as well, because that will help reduce the logistics costs here as well, to support businesses continue to grow. In terms of adoption of tech with Vietnam as well, actually one key part which will really help sustain our market's growth is Vietnam's willingness to invest in infrastructure at the moment, modernizing our ports, building a large network. Vietnam's speeding up their efforts to make Vietnam into the top manufacturing hub and logistics hub really in Southeast Asia, coupled with stable labor costs here, coupled with the government's very, very expedited reforms as well, merging provinces, changing laws. A lot of these laws came into effect on the 1st of July. There's more coming in effective October that we spoke about in terms of tax laws. Vietnam is really, really making everything much more accessible, much more streamlined process, simplified for investors, and also politically very, very stable here in Vietnam here as well at the moment. So I think the future, the growth, it can only be up.
Okay, thanks, Will. Thanks for sharing the insight about the industrial and logistic market, about the technology adoption, and about the change in the policy making the Vietnam is more accessible to the investor and the developer as well. And it's really valuable guidance for all the stakeholders who want to looking at the market here. Thank you very much for joining us today. To our audience, thank you for listening. See you next time.